His sapphire eyes lit up as they landed on me. "Hello, Thomas," Sarah greeted him, and he gave her a look of disdain, the same way he had since I first met them. Seemingly unaffected, Sarah brushed past him and went into the building to take her seat. "I swear, once we're married, I'll have you in more civilized company," he said, not caring to lower his voice so that she couldn't hear. "Sarah's my best friend, and if she's good enough for me, then she should be good enough for you," I told him, grinning at his stubbornness. "We obviously have differing opinions on what's good enough," Thomas sneered toward the door, but then lost the sour face as he returned his attention to me. "My mother got a catalog in from the city with some wedding dresses. I'd like for you to come have a look at it after school today." My cheeks flushed with the thought of us standing before the altar together. Thomas would look dashing in a pressed black tuxedo. I only hoped that I would be half as attractive. Before I said yes, my mind flitted to Fido. Mrs. Smith probably expected me to come take care of him every day after school while he was in her care. "How about this weekend?" I suggested. "I have a lot of chores to do when I get home." "I can bring the catalog by your house if you like." "No," I replied quickly. "I wouldn't have time to thoroughly look over it. Let's get together this weekend." "All right," he agreed finally, leading me into the school building for class. The day proceeded as normal until the last recess came around. Like usual, the younger children headed for the door before the handful of older students, ever eager to escape their studies. Today, however, something stopped them from leaving the school building, filling the room with gasps. "Mrs. Potts," a small boy said, peering out into the schoolyard with a look of worry on his face. "There's a naked man outside." My breath hitched, and I glanced at Sarah, who had an equally horrified look on her face. There was no question in either of our minds who the man was. Part of me wanted to go usher Fido away, but the larger part of me was terrified about how I would explain him to Thomas. There was no doubt in my mind that Thomas would be furious when he found out that Fido could shapeshift into a man. More so that I had withheld that information from him. He would likely see it as a betrayal, and maybe even call off the wedding. I definitely didn't want that to happen. With Thomas at her heels, ever the protector of the school, Mrs. Potts rushed to see what all the commotion was about. Upon their disappearance, Sarah took the opportunity to flank my side, giving me an urgent look as if to ask why I hadn't been the first one out of the door. "We've got to do something," she said desperately. "Thomas can't know," I whispered. It was the first time I had ever seen Sarah look angry at anyone for anything. Without another second's hesitation, she brushed past me, pushing through the students who were gathered at the door. All that I could force myself to do was follow, hoping she had a plan that would save Fido while not sabotaging my engagement. Fido seemed confused, simply standing there as Mrs. Potts talked to him. His eyes lit up when they landed on Sarah, and he instantly tried to push through Thomas and Mrs. Potts to get to her. Afraid that he might be trying to attack the students, Thomas grabbed him by the arm, pulling him back. "Fido," Sarah said, completely ignoring my pleas to keep him a secret from Thomas. "Fido?" Thomas made a disgusted face, still holding onto Fido's arm despite his struggling. "I told you, he's a devil hound." She looked up at me. "Claire, get down here. You need to help me get him home." My heart sunk at the association. "Why isn't he wearing any clothing?" Mrs. Potts was absolutely appalled. "He must have shifted and lost them," Sarah tried to explain. "Let go of him." She glared at Thomas, who promptly obeyed. "That damn dog is a demon after all. An abomination. I'll have him killed by the end of the day," Thomas declared. "You most certainly will not." I stormed down the stairs, standing between Thomas and Fido. "That thing is a monster, not a pet. Look at him," He gestured. "His nakedness is a proof of his sin.